Today we'll be crocheting a very cute and simple mini net bag featuring a crossbody design. The size is very small, making it perfect for your phone or little trinkets. All you will need is some yarn, a crochet hook, scissors, and something to mark your stitches with. So let's get started. First we're going to create a slip knot. To start the slip knot, first hold your yarn like this. Bring the tail end of your yarn to the back. Hold that intersection, and in that loop, from the back insert your fingers. Then grab the tail end of your yarn and pull against it. In that loop that you've created, grab your crochet hook and insert your hook into that loop and pull snugly onto your hook. And here's our slip knot. We're now going to hold the yarn like this so it drapes over the index finger. And now we're going to chain 23. To chain, wrap your yarn around like so. And then we're going to pull it through the loop. And you can see there's a V shape that forms here, which indicates our first chain. We're just going to do that again. So wrap your yarn around and pull through. Here is our second chain. Again, wrap your yarn around and pull through. And here are 3 chains. So we're just going to keep going until we have 23 chains all together. Here are my 23 chains all in a row and completed. We're now going to start round 1. To start round 1, we're going to chain 1 extra. So you can see this is the chain that we have just created. For this step, we're going to ignore this most recent chain, and with our hook, we're going to insert it into the chain after, so the second chain from the hook. Then we're going to do 2 single crochets. To do a single crochet, you want to start by wrapping your yarn around the hook, pull through until there are 2 loops on your hook, then wrap your yarn around again, pull through both loops. We've just created our first single crochet. So what I'm going to do is grab my stitch marker, and in that V that we have just created, I'm going to insert my stitch marker like this. So we just created 1 single crochet, and as I said before, we're going to make another single crochet, but this time we're going to do it in the same stitch. So you can see that this loop is a little bit stretched because our most recent stitch is coming out of it. So that is where we're going to insert our hook again, then wrap your yarn around, pull through, then wrap your yarn around again and pull through the 2 loops. So to recap, we've just put 2 single crochets into that first loop. Now we're going to put a single crochet into every individual loop. So you can see the next chain in line is here. That's where we're going to insert our hook. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through. Wrap your yarn around again and pull through 2 loops. Let's do one more together. Insert your hook into the next chain. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Wrap your yarn around and pull through 2 loops. So let's continue this all the way to the other end, and I'll meet you when you get towards the end of the left-hand side. So since we left off, I've put a single crochet all the way to the other side, And you can see I'm at a point where there is one loop left before the knot at the very end. So at that point, we're going to put another single crochet in there. And instead of moving on to the next one, we're going to put 2 more single crochets into that same loop. Now in this one loop, we have put 3 single crochets all in a row, and you can see it is a bit of a tight squeeze, and you can see it spilling over to the other side. And that is intentional so that we can round our corner to go to the other side. Now, once you've rounded the corner, you can see on the other side, we have here these lumps that indicate the other side of the chains that we made at the very start. And you can see this knot is part of the last chain that we put our 3 single crochets into. So skip that part and you can see the next loop is here, 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 and so on. So skip this lumpy part and we're going to insert our hook into just that one loop and put a single crochet in, just like we've been doing. So it looks something like this right now. Now you can see the next loop is here. Insert your hook in there, wrap your yarn around, pull through, wrap your yarn around and pull through again. And you're just going to continue putting in a single crochet in each of the loops that you see here until we get to the other side. And so remember, it's not this one because you can see our last stitch is coming out of this loop. So don't put another one in here, always put it in the next flat lying loop. So keep going until we get to the other side, and I will show you how to finish off this round 1. So I've just single crocheted all the way around the other side, and you can see we're almost at the end. We can see our stitch marker right here. And there is one little flat line there that I can crochet into, so I'm going to put a single crochet in there. And you can see the next sort of loop in line would be the one that's sort of attached to the stitch with our stitch marker on it. So we don't want to crochet into that, and what we're going to do instead is insert our hook into those 2 loops that our stitch marker is in. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through. You can see there are 2 loops on our hook, so we're going to pull our first loop through our second loop. So we have just finished round 1, and we're now ready to start round 2. And I'm going to take my stitch marker out. To start round 2, we're going to chain 2. So you can see my chains are poking out like this. And now I'm going to mark my most recent chain with a stitch marker. So I'm going to mark my most recent chain and make sure it's marked with a stitch marker like this. Then we're going to chain 1 more. From here, you can see the next stitch on the bottom is this one here. We want to skip this one. So we're going to go 1 stitch to the left, and that's the one we're interested in. But before you insert your hook into that stitch, we're first going to wrap your yarn around the hook. So we're preparing to make a double crochet, in both of the loops of the stitch that we were talking about earlier, insert your hook into both of these loops, wrap your yarn around, and pull through. We will have 3 loops on our hook now. From here, we're going to wrap your yarn around and pull through just the first 2 loops. Then wrap your yarn around again and pull through the last 2 loops. So we've just created a double crochet, and you can also see we've just created a square shape. And as we create more of these squares, we will create this net pattern that makes up the body of our bag. Let's keep going on to the next square. To create the top part of the square, we're going to chain 1 extra. And you can see we sort of intend for that to go across the horizontal. We can also see that's the next stitch in line to the left after our double crochet. So skip this one and we're going to go into the stitch on the left. Wrap your yarn around, insert your hook into the 2 loops of that stitch. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. You can see there are 3 loops on our hook. Wrap your yarn around and pull through the first 2 loops. Then finally, wrap your yarn around and pull through the last 2 loops. So you can see our chain 1 sort of bridges across like I was saying before, and our double crochet acts as a pillar to make the other side of the square. We're just going to keep continuing with this pattern all the way to the other side. Let's do 1 more together. We're going to chain 1, find the next stitch, which you can see is this one here. Skip that one, so we're going to insert our hook into here. But before we do that, wrap your yarn around, insert your hook, wrap your yarn around again and pull through. Wrap your yarn around and pull through the first 2 loops. Then wrap your yarn around again and pull through the last 2 loops. And here is our 3rd square. So let's continue this pattern of making the squares all the way around to the other side. There's no need to add extra stitches like we did in the previous round, so just keep going all the way around and I'll show you how to finish off at the very end. So I continued my net pattern all the way to the other side, and you can see we've gotten to a point. If you stretch your stitch marker like this, you can see more easily that there's no more space for another double crochet even if we wanted to make another one. So we're just going to chain 1 to bridge that gap and connect our 2 ends together to finish off the round. So chain 1. And now insert the hook into the stitch with the stitch marker in it. Make sure the hook is going through both loops. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through. You can see there's 2 loops sitting on our hook. We're going to finish off with a slip stitch, so bring the first loop through the second loop, like this. So that marks the end of round 2. Let's take the stitch marker out again. And we're going to start round 3. To start round 3, I'm going to chain 2 again. And mark that most recent chain with your stitch marker. Then we're just going to chain 1. Now notice all these double crochets or pillars that we made in round 2. So if you look closely at the next pillar, you can see there's a stitch sitting on top of it. And that's where we're going to make a double crochet. So start by wrapping your yarn around the hook and insert your hook into that stitch above the double crochet. wrap your yarn around again and pull through and finish off your double crochet just like you've been doing. So you can now see there's a new square above our previous square. So let's continue and do another one. Chain 1. Wrap your yarn around, insert your hook in that stitch above the next pillar and finish off your double crochet. And again we can see another square has appeared above the previous square. We're just going to keep doing this all the way around until we reach the other end. So I'll meet you at the end of this round and I'll show you how to finish it off. I've just crocheted all the way to the other side, and if you pull on your stitch marker, there isn't enough space for another double crochet. So I'm going to chain 1, then insert my hook into the stitch containing my stitch marker. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then pull through the first loop through the second loop. And that was round 3. You can see round 3 was very similar to round 2. So I've just finished round 2 and 3. I'm going to keep going until I have finished round 13. If you need a reminder on any of the steps, you can go back and re-watch the previous step. But otherwise, I'll meet you at the end of round 13. This is what my round looks like after I finished round 13. Now we're going to start round 14. So take your stitch marker out, and what I'm going to do is first chain 1. Then in this square, I'm going to do a single crochet. So insert your hook just in that big loose square, wrap your yarn around and pull through. Wrap your yarn around and pull through both loops. I'm now going to grab my stitch marker and I'm going to insert my stitch marker through the most recent stitch that I just made. Next we're going to put another single crochet into that stitch above our next pillar. Insert your hook through both loops of that stitch. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through both loops. Again, we reach another square, so insert your hook. Wrap your yarn around and finish off your single crochet. And looking for the next stitch above the next pillar, we're going to do another single crochet in that stitch. So you can clearly see we're alternating between putting a single crochet inside a square and on top of the previous double crochets. So we want to keep following this pattern all the way across, and I will meet you at the very end of this round. So I'm almost finished with this round. You can see there's one square between my stitch marker and my hook. So I'm not quite done yet. I still need to do one more single crochet into that last square. After that, you can see there's not much of a distance between my hook and the stitch marker. So from here, I'm going to insert my hook into the stitch with the stitch markers in it. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then pull the first loop through the second loop. So now we have reinforced the top part. And now we're going to take the stitch marker out. From here, we're going to try and figure out what the other side of the work is from my hook. So I'm just going to eyeball and estimate where the end is and place a stitch marker at the estimated other side. So around here, and I'm going to count each of the stitches this way and that way to make sure it's directly in the middle. And adjust the position of your stitch marker as required to make sure it's sitting in the middle. So I had 23 stitches on this side and that side, so an even number on either side of the stitch marker. Now we're going to work on making the straps of our bag. So we're going to work on a super long chain. So you can chain as long as you'd like. It depends on how long you would like your strap to be. And as you make your chain, you can hold it against your body and just make sure it's the length of chain that you want. I ended up chaining 180, which was ideal for me. But for this step, there is no set length that you need to do. Once you've made your long length of chain, you're going to find the stitch marker on the other side of your work. Insert your hook into the stitch to the right of your stitch marker. And we're going to wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then pull the first loop through the second loop. Take your stitch marker out and just do a single crochet into the next stitch. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through these two loops. In the next stitch, we're going to insert our hook. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then pull the first loop through the second loop. At this stage, we're going to chain the exact same number of chains that we did earlier so that we can give our pouch a double strap design. I know it's a lot of chains, but we're almost there. Once you've finished your second set of chains, you're going to go back to the other side and insert your hook not in the stitch that's to the direct right of the other chain, but instead we're going to go one more to the right. Then wrap your yarn around and pull through, then pull the first loop through the second loop. Now in the stitch that we skipped, which should now be on the left of your hook, we're going to insert the hook through that stitch and complete a single crochet. So wrap your yarn around and pull through. Wrap your yarn around and pull through two loops. And finally, we're back to the start. So you're going to find the base stitch where the chain is coming out of. That's where you want to insert your hook. Wrap your yarn around and pull through. Then pull the first loop through the second loop. From here, we're going to chain one more, and then we're going to cut our yarn, leaving behind a tail. Pull your hook against the yarn and tighten with your fingers. We're almost done. All we're going to do is weave in our ends. I'm going to snake my tail through the base of my work. I'll show you what I mean by that. Grab your crochet hook, and this step doesn't have to be completely exact, but you want to insert your hook into a stitch that's next to your yarn tail. Then you just want to bring your tail onto the other side using your hook. We're going to repeat for the next step and bring your tail to the other side. And we're just going to keep repeating down the line until we've done a few more, and I'll show you what you can do after that. I've now weaved back and forth about 10 times now. I'm now going to grab my scissors and cut my yarn tail very close to my work. Be careful not to cut your actual work. After that, you can just pull against the edge of your work and it should be pretty seamless. We're now going to tackle the tail on the other end as well. I'm just going to insert my crochet hook inside and just drag your tail onto the inside. And now that is quite hidden because it's on the inside of our pouch. And here's our finished project. I hope you enjoyed the process of making this mini net bag, and I'm so proud of you for getting to this point. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.